Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moore and Connolly Football Show. So glad you could join us once again, where we're previewing the Wildcard games, because it is Wildcard weekend, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Moore, your humble host, and joining me, as always, he's my good friend, always with me in my heart. It's Ollie Connolly. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm doing great today, Tom. How are you?
I'm not bad, buddy, not bad. I'm excited about these 4 games. And the great thing about this show is, obviously, during the regular season, we give you, preview all the games. We talk about all of the games. Then when we review, we pick up on most of them. But this time we get 4 games. So we really get to go in more detail than we usually do. And I love it, Ollie.
It's what I prefer. And this is, I don't know if this is the best football weekend of the season, this or the divisional round. Probably better games the divisional round. But I love the Saturday-Sunday thing.
I love the wildcard weekend because I think there's more opportunity for kind of shocks.
Yes.
I think, anyway, that's just what I believe. Look, it's the Moore and Connolly Football Show. We hope that you enjoy it. We hope that you're joining us again. But if you are a new listener, then thank you for giving us a chance. We will be hitting you with the news first. Then we will talk wildcard previews, those 4 games that we've got for you this weekend. Then finally, we'll finish with listeners' questions, as we always do. So if you have a thought during the episode, during this one, that you want to share with us, whether it's about football or about something else, hit us up at ThomasMoore27, at Ollie with an IE UKEZ, and of course use the hashtag MCFS, because that's how we find your tweets. You can email us as well, uknzone@gmail.com. It's all up to you, and if you want to give us a rating on iTunes, please do. And we have got one this week, Ollie.
We have a great one from an old-time listener who took around 4 years to decide whether he enjoyed the show or not.
See, that's what you need to do. You need to mull it over. And he is one of our all-time great listeners as well.
He is indeed. I think pining for the Hall of Fame is what this means.
He is. Well, he was a nominee in the inaugural class. He just didn't get it. So maybe there's a bust coming for him. And I know he'd prefer the other type of bust. But we'll talk about that man later. Now, I'll give you a clue. It's the letter after S. Ollie, let's get to the news. So kicking off the news, we talked about so many coaching manoeuvres and firings and all that stuff at the early episode this week, and it's continued, Ollie, and this is one that really blows my mind. I mean, I woke up this morning, I saw it on my phone on a notification, I thought, what? And it's the Bucks. They fired Lovie Smith. He was 8-24 over 2 seasons, Ollie. But regardless of the record, this was a team that was in a rebuilding phase of its history anyway. They've now got the franchise quarterback in place. Lovie Smith's not like somebody who's a one-time guy. He's had a head coaching gig before up in Chicago, obviously. He's got experience. I really, 2 seasons, Ollie, I don't get this.
And not just head coaching experience. I mean, he took the Bears to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman. And you kind of look around the league and the way this league works. It's just interesting, I think, as a precedent, because you see Jeff Fisher, and he is kind of still living off the fact he got to a Super Bowl. Lovie Smith has the same kind of resume, rebuilding team, as you mentioned, moving in the right direction. The first time ever that this program, this organization has had a franchise quarterback. You go through their entire history, they've never had a single franchise quarterback who you could say was even in the top 15 of the league at any point in their history, which is remarkable. They have one now. And what these organizations all do with these young quarterbacks is they have turnover. These guys end up with 4 or 5 OCs in 4 or 5 years, and they wonder why the growth stagnates. It's just a very strange decision. If you look at it on the face with the 8-24 record, some maybe would see how you could come to that decision. But given the tight bond between the GM and the coach, the GM didn't make this decision. It was an ownership one. You have to wonder what happened. Was there some backroom dealings? What was going on here? Going in the right direction, 6 wins this year, clearly moving in the right direction, competitive in almost all games except the first one, and just a strange time to make this. But we always have the one shocker, and it finally happened.
Yeah, and I really didn't understand it. You've managed to fish out a quote from Levante David, haven't you?
I didn't fish this one out. He posted this on Twitter, quickly and hurriedly deleted though.
Oh, really? Do you want me to read it out?
Go for it.
Do you want me to read it out in an accent?
Don't do a African-American linebacker one though.
Okay. What, do you want to do Irish or something?
Yes, that's exactly what I want.
Okay, I'll do Irish. Okay, this is Levante David. I just got to channel my Irish. My brother-in-law's Irish, you see, so I hear it a lot, so I get a lot of practice. Although that's more Northern Ireland. I want to go more farther ahead. Okay, here we go. Sorry if we've got any Irish listeners, because this is going to be some kind of amalgam of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. I'll go, this is stupid. Why have I got Northern Irish? I never do Northern Irish. Okay, I'll just do it like that. This is stupid. We can't even have a consistent coach. 3 coaches in 5 years. Outside looking in, y'all wouldn't understand how great a coach a person he is. I guess y'all got what you've been asking for. Shaking my head.
It sums it up pretty well, though.
If somebody from Ireland is listening and they want to pinpoint whereabouts that accent is from, including if it was just completely awful, please tweet me at ThomasMoore27. It paints a picture, though, Ollie, if that's what a player's saying.
It does, and you look at these firings again, they just no consistency across the league. You look at the Chip Kelly one, and the players running him out because he's not talking to them in the hall. Then you have Lovie Smith, who really is kind of that father figure type of coach. It was a young roster. It's not very talented on the face of it. I mean, they have some top-end talent. Gerald McCoy is a decent, or a very good defensive tackle. Levante David is probably the best, if not second best, weak side linebacker in the league at that specific role. But they're not game-changing roles. I wrote about this in their preseason preview. Gerald McCoy is a two-gapping play. He's there to shut down the run. Levante David is a run-stuffing, weak side linebacker. This isn't your Aaron Donald, gap shooting nose tackle. This isn't your Clay Matthews, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, hybrid who rushes the passer. These are guys who are supplementary roles to those great pieces, though they are good players. They just don't have top-end talent outside of Winston, and they have one of the worst offensive lines by true talent in the league. So a strange decision. I don't really understand it. But if he's not that guy for the long term, and probably he's the type of guy who takes from A to B, and then you bring in a Gruden or whoever to take you from B to C to try and win a title, maybe you're fine making that decision now if, as I suspect it will be, an internal hire and promoting Dirk Cutter from OC to head coach.
Well, that's what's really interesting. I'm really interested to see what they do. If they do promote Cutter, that'd be very interesting. But sometimes things like this, which really leave your head scratching, they do have already got somebody in mind. But I'm fascinated to see whether that's actually someone external, particularly with a young quarterback like Winston. But we'll find that out. Interesting you said about Chip Kelly not talking to people in halls. That just gave me this image of him. He seems like the kind of guy that would have a Segway at the facility and slowly wheel past people. Yeah. Lording it up.
I agree. I imagine the Eagles facility being fitted with those things they have in airports but nowhere else, where like there's escalators but on the ground, and he just moves around standing on those watching the iPad or whatever they use, so he doesn't have to actually move his body.
He's the only one who's allowed to use them. Players have to walk. Even the rest of the coaches, they all have to walk as well. Just another head coach thing I just want to touch on, Ollie. Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin, and Tom Coughlin's little speech about Eli saying...
Beautiful.
It was incredible. It really was emotional, like a family breaking up. It's not his fault. It's not his fault.
It was so heartbreaking. I tweeted that video out. If people want to try and find it and can't Google it, go to @OllieUKZ. It's so heartbreaking because they've had a conversation where he's apologized to him, basically taking the blame. I'm talking about Eli there. And then Tom, that was an all-time great exit interview for the way he walked past Mara. That was sensational. The bombastic attitude of him. He was just holding court there. Everyone loves him. Like you said, saying to Eli, look, it's not your fault, Eli. He's going to come back to work and be great next year. I loved everything about it. Again, that's a guy who prioritizes the family aspect and kind of those football values people talk about more than a lot of coaches, and that leads to them not finishing above 800 3 years in a row. But he really does value that, similar to Lovie Smith, whereas then you have the juxtaposition of a guy like Chip Kelly, all about on-field performance, and that rubs some of the players the wrong way.
Yeah, and it was genuinely emotional as well, yes. because when you watch it, you see it's not bullshit. He genuinely is saying, and there's words that's coming to mind. And admittedly, with that whole Eli thing, he's addressing a question initially, and he's saying it's not his fault, and then he turns to Eli to say it's not that, because that's what he thinks. It's not your fault, and that's what made it really emotional. Okay, moving on, Ollie, a coach who's probably less popular than Tom Coughlin is the douche, as he's continually seeming to be, and putting himself really forward for douche of the year, ever increasingly in 2016, front runner early on, is Sean Payton. Now, he's staying with the Saints, Ollie. Now, I first want to ask you, is that true? Is that genuinely what's going to happen? Because that's what it seems like. Or is this just another element of the saga?
You never know with him, because him and his agent are two of the best in the game. I mean, Sean Payton, if we don't forget, the Bountygate thing happens amidst Bountygate. This is a guy who, if you take into perspective, you just remove yourself from football and think about what they did. It's kind of like, I'm trying to put it into an office context of people, but it's just breaking the rules, but doing it in a way that could harm other people in another office. Now, he says he doesn't know about it. We get all that. But he gets slammed for that. And yet in the midst of that, he negotiates the biggest contract in NFL history for a coach. So that's how good him and his agent are at talking and figuring stuff out. The NFL voids that contract, which is, I think, highly illegal. They renegotiate the contract again. He's the highest paid coach in the entire NFL. He's trying to get a pay raise, basically. He wants to get $10 million a year. He has 2 years remaining on the deal. He's been leaking stuff for months about the Dolphins and the Colts. And then says yesterday in a press conference, no, I think I'll stay. So now it looks like he's going to try and renegotiate again. As I said, 2 years left on the deal. Try and keep the band together with him and Drew Brees as they go through this final run and get close to $10 million a year for a coach, which is kind of insane. I think he's going to try and get some control of personnel away from Mickey Loomis, who is also concentrating on basketball.
The thing for me, Ollie, with this is if I was the Saints as an organisation, I'd say this is a short-term thing. He's money grabbing. I realise the ability and knowledge that Payton and then Drew Brees connected at the hip as they are do bring to my franchise. But you know what? I'd cut it and just say, you know what, I'm done with this. I want to start afresh because the Saints are at that end of the cycle. What's another 2 years going to do? I don't think, despite how good Drew Brees is, that if you're going to sell yourself to someone like Sean Payton for maybe just a couple more years, that it's worth it when hitting the reset button because they can't keep pace with some of the youngsters that are coming through with the Cams and the Winstons and stuff like that.
I agree with you that it would be nice if you could make it a clean break to move on, but it's just not financially viable. First of all, you have to find someone who's as good as him, and no one on the market is as good as him. That's why the Colts chase him. That's why these teams, let's say the Bucks, for example, they probably reached out behind back doors to try and see if he'd be interested in a trade. That's why he wasn't just a guy who was going for no money and why you'd have to give up a second-round pick for him. He's in high demand, and there's no one on the market there, unless you really believe in what Chip Kelly does, that is even close to him in terms of record and ability as a play caller and all those kind of things. So then you've got to go and find a replacement. Now, if Pagano's available, I make that move. Seemingly he's not, or he isn't right now. He signed a contract extension. Also, if you then fire him and say, look, we're blowing this thing up and moving on, you've got to pay him to coach somewhere else. So now you're paying a top 10 coach to be in a different building in a different facility. It's just not viable. It doesn't make sense. Just keep him around for 2 years. Try and win a championship. Everyone's talked about them being in this kind of credit card mode where they've just pushed the cap back and pushed the cap back. And now they want to reset. It's a strange time to hit the reset. I say go all in for the final 2 years. You have the championship caliber quarterback. Pay the price in 2 years' time. You've already paid the price enough by pushing stuff back. Wait another 2 years. Try and do this thing with Brees the final 2 years. Keep him next year. Extend the contract through the final year, and then let Payton and Brees go out.
It's interesting. I just don't believe with that roster, even with Payton and Brees, that they're actually going to do anything. Why
they're not. I agree with you, Tom. But maybe they make a couple of moves. We see this thing fluctuates all the time. Maybe Brees plays out of his mind and he elevates the guys around him. I think if they can reinforce somehow that defensively, and I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe they find a whiz kid DC to come in there. I don't know what they're going to do. But I think that's the way to go about it, rather than saying let's rebuild the roster whilst we have a 36-year-old quarterback who could still win Super Bowls. Unless you get a haul of draft picks for Brees, and he's only got a year on the contract, so no one's going to do that.
That's the problem in a way. They maybe you should have traded for Brees a couple of years ago, but then you wouldn't have done that there because that would have made no sense. It's a difficult situation when you come to the end of a franchise quarterback's run and a Hall of Fame quarterback's run.
He's still playing as a Hall of Fame quarterback as well. It's not like the Manning situation or Brady 3 years ago when it seemed like there was decline. I understand people talked about decline earlier in the season, but you just think about all the different pieces he had, and he had a new center, and they had turnover all the skill position spots. Once they got embedded into the team around week 6, he was as good as he's ever been the final few weeks of the season, or since week 6.
It's always going to be a difficult situation regardless. Let's move on to another Hall of Famer, Calvin Johnson,
Amazing.
my friend. Retirement for Calvin Johnson. He's contemplating it. He said that he's evaluating options for my future. I would expect to have a decision regarding this matter in the not too distant future. You can't use future twice in the same sentence, mate. He needs to get the synonyms working on his Microsoft Word.
Also, Calvin Johnson didn't write that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, whoever he's paying is getting paid far too much because they need to work out some different words. Come on now. Ollie, what of Calvin Johnson? What of his future? I certainly would like him to walk down the road to Green Bay, but that's probably not going to happen.
I want him to go out the way he wants to go, so I'm not going to second guess a huge deal of this. But what I will say is this is hilarious. This is an announcement that I may make one in the future, which is just extraordinary. He's basically saying here, Tom, it's not worth me playing football anymore. Okay, I'm not that fussed. If he walks away this year, he costs himself $60 million and some bonus money he has to give back to the organization. So he's giving up $60 million. You could just turn up to camp and really half-arse it for a year, try and make business decisions about your body, and collect 60 million. So he's saying, I don't need that cash. I have all the money in the world. What I want to happen is I want you guys to either trade me or cut me and let me go and win for a season. That's what he's saying here. And what he's hoping is that hypothetically, agent will hypothetically ring his agent and will say the Patriots would offer you 12 million a year to come here if you're released. And he's going to say, okay, I won't retire, and they'll release him. That's what's happening here. It's back channeling. He's putting it on notice to teams. Call my agent, give me a competitive offer, a decent offer, and I will take a pay cut to come and win for a season. But I'm not going to play football in Detroit if they want me to take a pay cut and us to suck for another year and probably have new coaching staff and all that kind of stuff.
I can't believe that as well, Ollie, because you said there that the Patriots say they'll offer him 12 million, whatever. It's not the amount of money is not important, but the very fact that what you said makes perfect sense. The very fact you say the Patriots just makes me think that's exactly the kind of thing that would happen.
That's what's happening here. He's looking at, and it's not just the Patriots. That's just an example. But I was going to say the Packers, but I can't imagine him doing that. He's talking to the upper echelon of teams. Let's go back to the Saints. Maybe the Saints call and say, "Hey, you want to come play with Drew Brees for next season? We'll give you 10 million. Is that competitive?" And he'll say, "No, I'm going to keep my 16." So whatever the money is to get him in whilst taking a pay cut, he's talking to those top tier teams, saying, "Come and make me an offer behind closed doors, and if it's not competitive enough, I'll walk away."
Very interesting, very interesting. I mean, 16 million down to 10 million for somebody like you and me, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference. It's interesting, but you probably, if he says he wants to win now, I suppose you'd have to reflect on this at the end of the season, but you're talking your usual suspects with the good quarterbacks, you're talking your Patriots, your Packers, your Panthers, your Seahawks.
I think Seattle's a really interesting shout. Now, can they maneuver the salary cap? Remember, they're going to let Marshawn Lynch go probably. Keep Thomas Rawls around. It's going to save them about 10 to 11 million. Is that enough money to try and convince him to come there for a season to win a title? They've done it with some guys in the past. I think that would be an interesting spot. How low is low enough where he wants to win rather than preserve his body?
I don't think he'd go to Denver because I think that's nearly done now with Peyton Manning. Well, we're gonna watch that this weekend. Next weekend. But anyway, look, that's that done. Ollie, that's the news.
That's the news. And like I said, there's only a limited number of options here. You're looking at 4 or 5 teams, and those teams are good because they're against the salary cap. Maybe someone like Dallas. I don't know, but it's a limited pool of teams.
He's only going to go somewhere where they've got a quarterback. I truly believe that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what he's saying here. He's going to walk away. Evaluating my options is give me my money at a decent price, or I'm walking away.
I would love it if he came to play for Green Bay. Oh.
Me too. I think that'd just be fun as a football fan.
Exactly. Why not? Why not? Why not, Ollie? Why not for one?
He has, in fairness to Johnson, I could just be looking wrong here. I think this is exactly what's happening. I'm not backing down from that. But he could also just be saying this. It's the end of the season. Brett Favre did this. The end of the season is the worst time for these guys. They are mentally and physically beat up. Do I want to go through this again? If you asked him to start the season, maybe he would feel differently. But he's spoken many, many times about being a one-team guy. And for poor Lions fans, they have Barry Sanders walk away in his prime. They could get a good 4 years of Calvin Johnson at a high level taken away from them in his prime. It's just Detroit sports, man.
Yeah, it's hard to be a Detroit Lions fan. Right, let's move on, Ollie. It's time for the Wildcard preview, so I think we need an extra special tune. Okay, we've got 4 games, my friend, and I am interested and excited by all of them. You know what? In my opinion, if you look at these games, Ollie, each one of them can go either way.
Yes.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And we're going to kick off, Ollie, with actually, and this sounds ridiculous, and unfortunately, I'm at a 30th birthday on Saturday, so I'm going to have to watch this at some point on Sunday, or probably next week, because on Sunday I'm going to be making it back, because it's all the way out in bloody Lakenheath or something, so it's in the middle of nowhere. Good friend of mine from university. But yeah, the Chiefs travelling to the Texans. I said this on the early show this week, Ollie. I'm really excited to watch, and I know this is an obvious thing to say about this game, but JJ Watt in the playoffs. I'm excited to watch him with that atmosphere, how pumped up he's going to be. What do you think is the key element here in this game? Because I know you have identified as well on UKEndzone.com, you've identified that JJ Watt is the key.
Yeah, what is always the key whenever you're playing the Texans, and really it's because of that defensive front. This entire Texans team, they don't move the ball particularly well down to down on offense. It's not a big splash play offense. DeAndre Hopkins can make some plays, but they don't gash you on the ground game, then hit big play action shots. They're a team that is built on stopping the other team and getting them to third and long situations, on having those big guys inside, having the likes of Watt play out of their minds the first two downs, then getting teams into third and medium, third and long, bringing in that sub package of Whitney Merciless and Watt and Jadeveon Clowney when he's healthy, and that's when Watt and co make some game-changing plays. And really, I wrote down as the key matchup being Jar Reed, who is the right tackle of the Chiefs, who is one of, well, I won't say one of the worst tackles in the league. He's a below league average right tackle. It's really Watt versus Andy Reid, and how do they try and defend against the onslaught that is the best defensive player walking the earth. And it's really tough. We know all about the usual ways teams try and do it. You can double team the tight end or the guard. You can chip with the back. You can cut block him. You can run plays just away from him. But that in and of itself is taking a guy out of your offense and is limiting what you can do. So just his mere presence there is affecting your offense. So how can they think up some different ways to do it is what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, it's very interesting, that battle, and it is, as you say, it's a coaching, it's a matchup battle. The other one that interests me, Ollie, is if you actually look at the pure figures, of course you've looked at these because you've written them down on our show rundown. The Texans are 24th in the league on offense, but they do have an explosive player in DeAndre Hopkins, and I've loved watching him this year. But the Texans, let's face it, the Chiefs are going to move the ball, even against this Texans defense, which is sneaky, one of maybe the top couple in the league. Yeah. The Texans are going to have to move the ball on offense. They're going to have to get points. And if you just box up DeAndre Hopkins, you start to worry about how they're going to move the ball.
And boxing up DeAndre Hopkins is incredibly tough. Everyone's tried it. He's had some of the best corners in the league thrown at him, and he just seems to dominate everyone. These teams played each other in week one, so it kind of gives you an insight into how maybe they'll try to approach things. Of course, a lot of time has passed there, but the personnel is roughly the same. And that was Marcus Peters' first game in the NFL. He had an interception in that game. He led the league in INTs this year and in pick sixes. Will they put Marcus Peters, this rookie, one-on-one against DeAndre Hopkins, which they did in week one, but they bailed him out more. Peters is a press corner. He likes to jam you and get his hands on you at the line of scrimmage. They were worried about him in week one with it being his first game, so they bailed him out. They played him off, man. They played him in zone. Will they have the confidence, like you say, to say, hey, Marcus, you think you can take this guy one-on-one in a big spot? Go for it, man. And if you can take him down, then the Texans, like you said, it's going to be completely ineffectual. In the first game, Hopkins, as I said, they played off man a lot. He got his fair share, scored a pair of touchdowns, one against Peters one-on-one. But like I mentioned, Peters made some plays and got a pick in that game. It's going to be a fascinating battle. Do they say, let's man up against Hopkins, or do they double him? What do they do to try and take him out of the game? It's just tough.
What about the battle in the trenches as well, Ollie? Because you pulled out some interesting stats for our rundown with regards to both the Texans and the Chiefs there. The D-line and O-line, their adjusted sack rates.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're both elite edge rushing teams. They have two of, if not the best rushers in the league. Justin Houston is the best pure speed rusher in the league. JJ Watt is JJ Watt, the best defensive player in the league. And then you look at just these teams as the offensive lines. Both their offensive lines, the Chiefs are so beat up. Their best player has been their rookie center, who was a tackle. They moved to center. They run almost 60% of their plays directly behind Mitch Morse, the center. They can't run on the perimeter as much as they would like to. And then you look at the Texans, they just lost their best player, their left tackle, Dwayne Brown, out for the season with a torn something or other. So now these teams are beat up along the line, and you got two of the best edge rushers in the league, and then you start looking at Clowney and Merciless and Tom Bahali. These are loaded pass rushing teams and just defensive fronts against two really beat up offensive lines. These teams are going to struggle to move the ball.
Okay, so what's this one going to come down to, Ollie?
I think the battle of what? And I think what's going to be interesting is, will they, for teams don't often do this, they kind of like to be who they are in the playoffs. They don't get overly imaginative. We see sometimes when teams are down, hold the Patriots last year did the double pass, if you remember. They pulled out the unbalanced line where you shift the tackle over and they play a tight end as a tackle and make him eligible, and they sent him down the seam a bunch. Teams pull that out when they're behind. Will Andy Reid come up with an entire new game plan to stop one player? And if you would ever do it, it's against this team and this player. Will they move? The Saints did this. It was very interesting. A few weeks back when the Saints played the Texans, if people remember, Watt was so dominant in that first half. It might have been one of the best defensive games I've ever seen. The Saints come out in the second half and say, we're going to shift our left tackle Teron Armstead, one of the best, if not the best, left tackles in the league. We're going to play him a right tackle, and we're going to keep our right tackle, Zach Strief, on the right side, and we're going to double JJ Watt with our 2 best offensive linemen and our 2 tackles, and we're going to move our left guard, bring in our 3rd tackle and play him at left tackle. And they went completely unbalanced for a number of series against Watt. It didn't work. He was still a monster. Will the Chiefs do something like that is out of the norm, out there to try and stop JJ Watt? Because if you don't stop him, he's a crusher of worlds and he'll win the game himself.
Okay, before we get to calling the game winner and the score, Ollie, you've got a bold prediction for this one.
I do. As I mentioned, these offensive lines are so beat up. These teams both live in 3rd down. The Texans are built around getting teams to 3rd down. The Chiefs are built to get to 3rd down and have Alex Smith with the run pass option on play fakes, carrying it with his legs, giving it to Charkandrick West, throwing it to Travis Kelce. I think that the wildcard game history, Tom, the most 3rd downs ever, 20 between the Colts and the Ravens in 2013. My prediction, the most 3rd downs in wildcard history.
Okay, fair enough. Now,
One
Ollie,
for people to watch, I'm sure, excitedly.
What I'm going to say then is I'm going to do a bold prediction as well. And we're going to do this for every single game. We're going to come up on the fly with some bold predictions.
Okay.
My prediction for this game is, Ollie, a combined 15 sacks.
15 sacks? Wow. Has that ever happened?
I don't know, but that's why it's bold.
Should I check the play index quickly?
Yeah, go on while I talk through my prediction for the score. So, as I said, it's an interesting one. And as I said with all of the games, is that it's a game that could go either way. Now, in my opinion, I've been weighing this up and seeing how the Chiefs have been coming into this and, the kind of hype that they've had around them. But I look at that offensive line and I look at what the Texans are capable of doing defensively and the fact that they do have, even on a stuttering offense, legitimate weapons that can get open, like DeAndre Hopkins. It's not like an offense that completely doesn't work. It does have functioning parts of it that could have an impact and make a play at any time. So I'm going to take the Texans. I'm going to take them in a tight one, 20-17.
That's pretty unbelievable. Sacks, most in NFL history, 14 between Philadelphia and the New York Giants in 1952. So those are probably inflated sack totals. But so if we go in the modern era, 2007, the Giants and the Eagles, 12 sacks in that game from the Eagles, actually. So this will be the most in history, Tom, and I like the bold prediction there. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think that Andy Reid will come up with some kind of game plan to limit J.J. Watt, whether it's having him as the read man in a zone read, as I mentioned, unbalancing the line and shifting people over, just doubling him like normal. I think the Chiefs have too much for the Texans on both sides of the ball. They are one of the hottest teams in the league right now, 10 wins in a row. Alex Smith moving the ball perfectly on offense, defensively making plays at the front end and the back end. I think the Chiefs are just better than the Texans, though it is in their house. So it's going to be a tough one. I say the Chiefs 24-21.
24-21. You see, I am writing these down now, Ollie, so we can look at them next week, and including the bold predictions as well, so we can see how we did. Okay, moving on. Steelers at the Bengals. We all knew it would come down to this, and this is a really fascinating one, Ollie. Well, first of all, give me your breakdown of this game.
Well, what excites me about this is that this is the first time in a long time when we have this new era of the millennial era and the Instagram era where everyone's friends now and they know each other at these passing academies and they go through Heisman events together and they're all friends. These teams really, really dislike each other and they've been calling out each other for weeks, begging to play each other, and now it's going to happen. And there's going to be fights and brawls and pre-game scraps, and I love it. Playoff football. Okay. Playoff football. It's going to be actually intense. Like when the Pats and the Ravens play, they don't like each other. It's more fun than when it's just kind of going through the motions of, it's the playoffs, that's fun.
We know that the Bengals themselves stuttered a little bit with the injuries that they had towards the end of the season. How do you think that's going to impact them going into this game?
It's big, obviously, that the McCarron's going to play, by all accounts, so they're not going to have Andy Dalton. That's a major blow. How healthy is Tyler Eifert coming back from his injury? He completely changes their entire offense. And are they going to be able to run the ball behind Bernard and Jeremy Hill? That's the big question.
I'm really interested in this one, Ollie, because as much as we rave about the Steelers' offense, their defense has got the opportunity to be terrible as well. So, it's particularly in the secondary. So that's what makes it a little bit easier for the Bengals' offense without Andy Dalton. Do you think the Steelers aren't balanced enough to actually perform in the postseason?
I think that they are just balanced enough, just because all they really need is a takeaway game. That's what they're going to be pinning on their board. That's what Keith Butler, the DC, he's going to say, I know we're not great against the run. I know that we get gashed for bomb plays in the secondary. It's going to hurt us. We're going to have to put up 30 points a game, probably, to win the Super Bowl. But if we can get one turnover a game, or if we can get one scoring play from defense game, if we can just get one takeaway, we're gonna buy an extra possession for our loaded offense, and we're gonna have a chance. And that's all their defense needs to go into this trying to, which I think they will do. And I think they're gonna send the house after AJ McCarron. I think they are gonna understand we do not have the horses. What is the point in us manning up and playing two deep safeties and hoping McCarron can't make throws? It's just not worth it. AJ Green will beat you. Tyler Eifert will beat you. Their running backs they're the best running team in the league against an average run defense. So they are probably going to send the house after McCarron, try and put him under pressure and try and force a couple of bad mistakes to get a takeaway, hopefully multiple. And if they can get a takeaway in each game, you give Ben Roethlisberger an extra possession, then there's no reason why the Steelers can't drop 30 on everyone, and that should, in the playoffs, be enough to take you at least to the AFC title game.
Why is Geno Atkins important in this one?
He's a monster. He's the reason why the Bengals are good against the run. He's the reason why they are good at getting after people one-on-one on the outside. He draws double teams. Now, the Steelers have David DeCastro, who's such a quality guard. Maybe he could take Atkins one-on-one, that they'll probably double with the center Cody Wallace. And if he's drawing two bodies, now you got one-on-one on the outside, and Carlos Dunlap has been in freak mode for the past 4 or 5 weeks. And you get pressure on Ben Roethlisberger. How mobile is he going to be? Is he battling injury himself? He seems to be beat up. He's spoken about that. He's just a changer of games. He's a game changer. He's one of the best nose tackles in the league. They have to find a way to stop him.
Okay, now we're going to make some bold predictions here, Ollie. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. You need to prepare your bold prediction now, you see. My bold prediction is the following, and you have to tell me if it's not bold enough. I say that Antonio Brown is going to get 200 yards receiving.
It's a perfectly fine bold prediction for me. We don't need to do the NFL Network that Antonio Brown will catch 5,000 yards.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks, Dion. I'm going to say I think Tyler Eifert has 3 touchdowns.
That's good.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah, no, I like that. It's nice and simple. And I'm going to give you my prediction now for a score.
Okay.
It's going to be Steelers 30.
Wow.
Bengals 24.
Hit that 30 mark, Steelers. Go to the AFC title game. I'm going to say Steelers 35, Bengals 18.
Ooh, interesting. So McCarron can't move that ball.
I mean, against this defense, he should be able to. I think there's going to be a couple of takeaways. I think so. Maybe a scoring play from the Steelers defense, and I don't know how you shut down this offense. Both sides, it's tough to shut down, but one of them doesn't have their quarterback, or the quarterback they want to have. Now, if Tyler Eifert is healthy, as I mentioned, I just realized if he scores 3 touchdowns, I don't know how they could get to 18 points. I just realized that.
Well, maybe they miss an extra
7,
point.
14, 21. They'd have to... Yeah, okay. I'll go with Bengals 21 then, because I want my things to be intact. If Ryan Shazier, who is the only guy on that defense who can match up with Eifert, they can't put a safety on him like some of the teams would do because they just can't compete. So if Shazier isn't healthy and he consistently leaves games with injury, they have no one to stop Tyler Eifert. And if he's healthy, coming back from the concussion, coming back from the forearm injury, if he's healthy, there's no one who can stop him on the Steelers defense. So if that happens and that falls their way, then they should be able to win the game. He's that much of a game changer.
Okay, there you go. Ollie, let's move on to Sunday. And we're going to start with the late game, which is the Packers traveling to the Redskins. The Redskins soaring on the wings of Kirk Cousins. The Packers flailing on the wings of Aaron Rodgers. This is a fascinating one, Ollie.
It is, and there's a bunch of key matchups in this game. I tried to highlight 2 for each one, but just these teams are just interesting teams. You start looking through the numbers, and they're maybe not as bad as you thought they were, or there's some things that are worse than you anticipated. These are 2 teams that are patently flawed, and if they were in... I don't know, I mean, the Packers got here somewhat by luck. That Hail Mary, for example, if they still would have been in the playoffs, had that not come through. Washington getting kind of a break with their division and their schedule. They both obviously deserve to be here. You don't get here by accident, but they're 2 teams who you would say this is them. Even if they win this is about their ceiling, and so it's going to be interesting to see which one does get to advance.
So what are your key matchups then? I mean, I think this is going to be hugely about, and I know I talked about this with the Texans and the Chiefs, but what happens in the trenches, Ollie?
This is where it gets interesting to me. Who's going to win the line of scrimmage? Obviously, that's obvious in each and every game. And if the Bengals come out and own the line of scrimmage against the Steelers, then that's going to give them such an advantage. But when you get to this stage of the season, usually both teams are of equal value at those key positions, unless there's a game changer like a Houston. You start looking at this, and I know people have criticized the Packers' offensive line, but you cannot deny the talent of Lang and Sitton, and then Corey Lindsey's going to be in there as well. How can they match up against the defensive front of Hatcher, Terrence Knighton, and Chris Baker? I know it seems pretty obvious to me, but the Packers haven't been terrible against the run this season, and Washington have been unable to run the ball so much so that they've just been giving it to Kirk Cousins 40 times a game to throw it. And is that really the thing you want to do going into the playoffs? I know I'd want to be limiting Kirk Cousins a little bit. I know he's had a fine season, but you'd want it to be in that kind of 30 throw range, getting to have the play action and take some shots against the Packers secondary that has a bunch of young players and could be suspect.
It could be suspect, Ollie, but that Packers defense, as I said earlier in the week, that is not the problem. The problem is the offense. That defense is solid. 9th overall it is coming to the end of the season. And the Packers offense is weird. It's actually 11th overall. But that's bizarre, Ollie, because, I've seen them with my own eyes. They've been terrible.
They are, and it's... See, the thing with them is that I think it's such a drop-off from what we anticipate, right? And they've been getting decent field position, which certainly helps. I think that we just have such high expectations. They should be the number 1, 2, or 3 offense in the league based on who they have there and the minds and the offensive line, that kind of stuff. And they just haven't been. So I think that's more of the, oh my God, they've been so much worse than our expectations that we would bang them down and say, oh, they might be 16th or 17th, but they still have the ability to move the ball effectively. And Washington defensively, they can get after you in the pass game. Preston Smith's been very good. Trent Murphy, Ryan Kerrigan, these guys can all rush the passer. They really struggle to stop the run. So this means that it's a huge game for Eddie Lacy. I would not be stunned to see him have one of those big games where people get excited about Eddie Lacy again. And, oh my God, the Packers are back because here comes Lacy. And if Lacy gets going, we know it opens up their entire offense. We remember the first Vikings meeting where out of nowhere Eddie Lacy returns and suddenly the pass game is opened up to James Jones et al. So it's going to come down to that battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And if the Packers can get off the ball and beat up this poor run defense, can they get Eddie Lacy moving?
What about Jake Ryan? You've identified him as a weak point. With Clay Matthews moving around at linebacker, that's left the rookie Jake Ryan at middle linebacker a lot, Ollie.
Yeah, I mean they play the pair of them inside together, but obviously Clay is the pass rusher or the guy who will sit underneath and sniff out rushing lanes or try and stop passes underneath. Jake Ryan is the guy who's in there mainly for rundowns, but has to stay on the field because they just don't trust the other guys to play there. Everyone's been so poor, and you can't really match Morgan Burnett up against Jordan Reed, who is a top 3, top 4 tight end in the league. And just Kirk Cousins' production when Jordan Reed is in there, it's just off the charts compared to when Reed isn't in there. Reed is such an unbelievable matchup. He is truly the embodiment, kind of like Jimmy Graham, where it's, oh, that guy is essentially a wide receiver. Why are they even calling him a tight end? He looks like one. He plays like one. So that's what Reed will do. So they're going to try and find a way to get Reed matched up against Jake Ryan as much as possible. He is the worst coverage linebacker that the Packers have. If you remember last week, Tom, against the Vikings, second or third play of the game, they are able to motion McKinnon. They motioned the back out, the Vikings, to go empty, and they got a free shot against Jake Ryan with Bridgewater, and Bridgewater just missed the throw. Otherwise, it would have been 7 points to begin the game for the Vikings. So they're going to find a way. Obviously, if they just come out spread, the Packers will just send their dime package out there and say, okay, let's just put a safety on him. But they'll probably come in tight, force Jake Ryan onto the field, and then switch out before the snap to try and get Ryan matched up one-on-one. And that to me is a major concern for the Packers. And there's a chance they could just say, even if he's our better option, down to down, than some of the other players, Palmer and what have you, they might just say, let's just not put him out there. Because he's such a liability in coverage, there'll be a problem against Reed.
Yep, that's true. Okay, bold predictions, Ollie. I'm going to let you go first on this one.
I think Kirk Cousins completes 82% of his passes.
Really?
Yes.
That is fascinating. Do you know what I'm going to go for?
Go on.
Kirk Cousins throws 3 interceptions.
Nice.
And Aaron Rodgers throws for 400 yards.
I think you're going to say throws 4. That'd be fun.
No, that would be fun. No, Aaron Rodgers throws for 400 yards.
I'm really excited for Rodgers to play very well if he does, and to see the people backpedaling off the hammer train. And I know he gets a lot of protection, so it's kind of an overcompensation of, we protect this guy so much. Now everyone starts hammering him and starts digging to them as well. How come the line seems fine and defensively they've been okay, so he must be the problem? And if he plays very well, the backpedaling is going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I just feel that I've seen a twinkle in his eyes in some interviews this week.
When do you not see the twinkle?
Well, yeah, that's true. I just feel like maybe this was all just a setup to get us all
a ruse.
It was all a ruse to make us think, oh, the Packers aren't any good and he's going to come out and do it. Style it out. Okay, Ollie, give me your prediction.
I'm going to go Washington 21, Green Bay 14.
Okay, I'm just going to go, and this is the first time we disagree. Oh, no, we disagreed on the first one. I'm going to go Packers 35, Redskins 31.
High-scoring games from Tom Moore.
Yeah, love it. Gotta love it. Ollie, that takes us to the final game. It takes us to the Seahawks at the Vikings. Another fascinating one. The Vikings, who came out as NFC North champions in the end against a rampaging Seahawks team that were only held off the NFC West title by the Arizona Cardinals. Ollie, how do you think the Seahawks are going to approach this game?
The same way they approach all playoff games where they just beat everyone down mercilessly. I think that this is going to be a complete spanking. And I do like this Vikings team, but the more you watch them, the more you see it's kind of, and don't jump on me Vikings fans, I do love the Vikings. Everyone loves Mike Zimmer. We all love the young defensive talent there. I just think they're very, very average at everything they do. Maybe above average at some things, and they kind of caught a fortunate break with what happened in Green Bay. And, credit to them for going up there and beating them down in Lambeau Field, but I do think they got kind of fortunate throughout the season. Even though their schedule looked rough coming into it, it wasn't terrible coming down the stretch. I just think they're pretty good, whereas I think the Seahawks might be the best team in the league right now.
It's very interesting, Ollie, because I actually feel the same way about this. I feel like the Vikings are, unfortunately, the proverbial lambs to the slaughter in this one. And, the Seahawks defense is still the Seahawks defense, and the Vikings offense, 16th overall, they've struggled to move the ball at times. If they can bottle up Adrian Peterson and force it on Teddy Bridgewater's shoulder, I just don't think he has it at this moment in time in playoff football. I don't think he's got it in him. And the way Russell Wilson's been playing, it's just been off the charts. And as much as we like some of the young players like Barr on that defense, I'm afraid that this just seems like a bad matchup to me, Ollie. It just seems like experienced team, been there a lot, absolute juggernaut. Vikings just made it into the playoffs as the NFC North champions, well, just as long as the Packers. And they're actually not that good of a team because, let's face it, there aren't that many good of a teams on the regular season's evidence from the NFC North this year. It just seems a bad situation for the Vikings to be in.
Yeah, I think the major problem for the Vikings is that everything they don't do well is what the Seahawks do very well. So it's going to be a major imbalance there. How are they going to move the football? I mean, last week they threw for 99 yards or whatever it was Teddy Bridgewater threw for. How is he going to throw in this game? You got Earl Thomas back there. Richard Sherman's going to probably take Stephon Diggs or more than likely take one side of the field given the personnel here. And then you start looking at in the trenches and you've got Cliff Averill who's going to beat up Khalil, and you've got Michael Bennett who might be the best pure pass rusher in the league, and he's going up against TJ Clemmings, the rookie at right tackle who's really struggled all season long. And they'll probably do the thing in the sub package where they say, hey, let's put Averill and Bennett beside each other, and now you've got a complete panic on with Bridgewater trying to figure out the protections and what have you. It's just a terrible matchup for the Vikings in my opinion, and I was fine with them. I don't want them to tank a game. I think they should have gone and won the NFC North. They weren't going to win the Super Bowl this season anyway, I don't feel. But it just shows you how much of a bad matchup this is for them, whereas maybe Washington would have been more favourable. And the only real thing in their favour, outside the fact that their defence can make a bunch of plays, and maybe they pick up a couple of takeaways, and that flips the script on its head, they need a monstrous game from Peterson. They need like a 125, 150, 2-touchdown game, which if the box is getting loaded and you've got to face Bobby Wagner and Hill and Bruce Irvin, it's just going to be tough.
Yeah, that really is. And it is down to Adrian Peterson at the end of the day if the Vikings are going to get anywhere. What about Russell Wilson? How do you contain the man?
You don't. No one's been able to, Tom. That's why he's been such a monster the second half of the season. Probably look at the Patriots game plan from the Super Bowl last year would be the best way to go about it. Spy him a bunch. Anthony Barr is one of the only athletes in the league, along with the likes of Jamie Collins, who received notoriety the week of the Super Bowl, who can keep up with him and who can stay pace with him as not just a pure athlete. There's a lot of guys who can do that, but it's the agility and the ability to move in the pocket. So you'd probably spy him a bunch. And I don't know, that takes a guy out of your defense. That might be a problem. And the Vikings, as everyone knows, likes to show that 2A gap pressure and either drop out or bring the blitz. Fortunately for them, they're playing a terrible offensive line. So can you just get to him before he's able to move? No one's really been able to do it, but I can't really doubt the Vikings given some of the personnel and the talent and the mind they have there in Mike Zimmer.
Are you prepared to give me a bold prediction?
Bold prediction. Russell Wilson throws for 5 touchdowns.
Oh, that's interesting because mine is also a Russell Wilson one.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. He runs for 100 yards and he throws for 300 yards.
I like that.
I know, kind of dual threat kind of situation. Okay, I'm going to take the Seahawks, Ollie, 39-14.
I like it. I will go Seahawks 30, Vikings 24.
I honestly thought you were going to come up with like 7 there or something like that.
No, I think there's definitely a chance here that this is a blowout. But, I mean, the Vikings are here on merit. As the more I think about it, I do love their defense and their defensive philosophy, but it's just so tough to contain Wilson. It's just a mismatch on the other side of the ball. They need a huge day from Payton. I wouldn't doubt him having one, so I'll say Payton has a big day, and I think they can hang around a little bit, but I wouldn't be stunned if it was a blowout.
Okay, and that's Wildcard Weekend sewn up, Ollie.
Oh, I'm so excited, Tom. Almost had a Collinsworth football-gasm the more I talk about it.
Love a football-gasm. We hope you enjoy the games, we really do. And please tweet us or get in touch with us. I won't be responding on the Saturday night, but if you're watching on the Sunday, get in touch with me at ThomasMoore27. Ollie's at Ollie with an IUKZ. Hit us up at UK Endzone as well, and keep checking out the content on UKEndzone.com. But for now, Ollie, we can go straight to listeners' questions.
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Daniel Negus at DannyBoy1704 sent us a couple of questions. He says, have the Packers failed to build a roster which can cope with Rodgers not playing at an elite level? Other teams like Seattle can win without Wilson playing at his best.
I mean, that's fair, but you can't just... I mean, this happens... A lot of it is good fortune as well. To go out and find Michael Bennett when nobody wants him and he becomes the best pure pass rusher in the game. To be able to have Cliff Averill, to get Sherman the 4th round, a guy who's a wide receiver for most of his time at Stanford, and he lands with the best defensive backs coach in the league in Pete Carroll. A lot of that's good fortune. I can't really hammer them for that. I've said many times, Ted Thompson gets such a pass, and if David Gettleman, the GM of the Panthers, did what... was called Ted Thompson, or Ted Thompson did that with the Panthers, then we'd all be creaming ourselves to give him praise. It's just because we believe in the Packers' philosophy. But yeah, they've not built a good roster. I mean, it's the inability to say and recognize that there's a championship window there to try and fulfill when you have an elite quarterback, and not necessarily build a roster where you win in spite of Rodgers if he doesn't play well, because you'll be betting that guy should play well all the time. So I don't expect them to do that, but I don't think they built a good roster anyway, regardless of whether Rodgers plays well or not.
Okay, fair enough. Some more questions from Daniel. He also says, is finesse teams can't win in January the most ridiculous narrative recited by former players that are now on TV? Well, we tackled this earlier in the week. Yes, it is. It's not about being, too soft to play. It's just about, are you actually good enough?
And I don't know what finesse means. Does finesse mean you pass more? Because if that's what it means, then the Seahawks have been passing and killing everyone. You could argue that them losing Marshall Lynch and Jimmy Graham and making themselves more quote-unquote finesse has made Russell Wilson one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he had better numbers than anyone over an 8-game stretch and turned Doug Baldwin into Jerry Rice. So what is the problem here? The Patriots won the Super Bowl last year by throwing on almost every down. So
exactly. He also asks, are any college coaches likely to become head coaches in the NFL? I've heard David Shaw is interviewing with the Niners.
David Shaw will not be interviewing with the Niners. That wherever you heard that is false. David Shaw is the head coach at Stanford. We've spoken about him before, Tom. The NFL is desperate to get that guy to the league. He has one of the best jobs in college. Would you leave Stanford for the 49ers? No chance. You would maybe leave to take over the Pats when Belichick leaves. You would maybe go to the Packers. If the Colts became available, you got the Stanford tie, you would look at that. You don't leave one of those power college jobs to go to a place where you have to find a quarterback. That's just not the way this thing works, unless you are a maverick like Mr. Kelly. Brian Kelly is the interesting one at Notre Dame. He is dropping hints constantly that he wants to come to the league, but as we mentioned previously, he wants full control. The Giants have sniffed around him many times, talked to him previously before moving on from Tom Coughlin, so maybe, but it's not looking particularly likely at this point.
Okay. Will Davis at Not Only a Hard Track.
Aha!
He says, which of the wildcard teams have the best chance to get to the championship game, if not the Super Bowl? Well, if we're talking about the actual wildcard teams, then I'd have to say the Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers. If it's just teams playing in the wildcard game, the Chiefs and the Steelers, because it's going to be from the AFC. But, I mean, the Seahawks are playing here. So, I don't know. Let's go with the Seahawks, actually. Why not?
It's Seahawks it is. Okay. This is great. This is a bit of a chain of conversation, to be quite honest. Started by Joe Brolly. As we just finished recording the early show this week, Joe Brolly at Joe_Brolly sent us a picture, which was a picture of text, obviously. And this is what we like, okay? This is my kind of speed. It's a bit more interesting than just your straight football question. Here we go. Basically, the only positive from the Giants' shit show of a season is that we play in London next year. it'll be the first time I'll see an NFL game in real life, but I've been going on about it for weeks now, and my girlfriend wants to come. Here we go. I'm going to read the responses from our family of Moore and Connolly Football Show listeners.
Probably
as well.
absurd and misogynistic.
He goes, now I don't want her to due to, 1, I want to have a few beers with my mates. 2, she doesn't have a clue about the NFL. And 3, despite not having a clue about American football, she dislikes the Giants. I'm a Sunderland fan and she supports Newcastle. She's that type of sports irritant, in brackets.
Wow.
Any advice on how I can get out of this, please? Well, let's go to the advice from the listenership first. Sam Martin, at Samuel Martin, says, axe her before the event, cannot get back with her. Okay. Then we had...
axe her before the event.
Yeah, exactly. And then to which Joe said, okay, reasonable solutions. And then our own Will Davis said... Take it to the game. What's better? A, she has no real interest in the NFL and her only input is to dislike the Giants. Or B, she becomes a fan of the game. You can actually talk about it as well as have healthy rivalry when she chooses a team to follow. Will. Who knows? She'll probably love Odell Beckham Jr. and end up a Giants fan anyway.
Come on, Will.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point. Joe said that I thought Odell Beckham would work too, even got her a poster. Nope.
Nope.
So, and then Will says, when she actually sees him in person, she may change her mind. Better to have someone to share an interest with. It's a very soppy answer.
I'm really close to. He's in the Hall of Fame. Clearly,
of course,
right?
Will's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm close to. That's almost like a PED scandal. He might get booted out. I do not like that at all. This is all about making yourself happy. He answered the question himself with the first 2 things. Tell her those exact 2 things that he wrote in there and say, I want to go with my friends. It's a me thing. I'm going to enjoy it with my buddies. And you don't know anything about the game, so I want to go with my mates. How difficult is that? It's called being honest and making yourself happy. You should make yourself happy first and foremost.
Exactly. And, well, it's about compromise as well. But in this kind of situation, that is something where you just be honest. If she's your girlfriend, you want to be with her for the rest of your life, if it's going that way. I know you don't have to make that decision now, Joe, just so you know. But if it's going that way, then, yeah, it's best being honest. Communication is what it's all about. Good old Big T8409, Tony, though, he said, we'll talk more about Tony in a little bit. He said, tell her the Rams are the Giants, she'll then cheer the Giants. Long shot, I know.
Why, how does that work? What's her relation to the Rams?
Oh, and Big Tommy K, who did the review last week, that was Tom Kislingsbury.
Oh, of course, Kislingsbury.
Exactly. He also said, I love you really, Tom. And then Bill Taxi, at Bill_football, he said, would have wrote a more funny review if New was going to read it out. Top show, listen every week from a sad Eagles fan. So he was the other one who wrote.
He can edit that review if he wants. I don't mind rereading. I'm fine with reading praise.
Of course we can read it again. Okay, I'll go to the hashtag MCFS. Oliver Inward says, can you see anybody from the AFC beating Arizona, Carolina or Seattle in the Super Bowl?
Yes, as we say each time, anyone can win the Super Bowl. A Giants team that was bang average brought out a NASCAR package and upset maybe the best team in NFL history. So anything can happen in that game.
That's all my questions, Ollie.
Should we go to the review?
Let's do it from our own Big T.
And the context being he's listened since probably the 2nd or 3rd UK End Zone football programme, let alone the Moore and Connolly Football Show, which is 3 years? 3 and a bit?
Quite a while.
I think it's 3 Super Bowls, maybe 4 Super Bowls. He says, better than Star Wars 7. This show is better and worth more spelled the way your name is, of your time than the Star Wars film. I concur.
Yes, topical.
Do you have any interest in Star Wars?
Interestingly enough, I want to go and see the new one because I like Star Wars. I'm not a mentalist about it, but I like Star Wars. And Sophia and I, over the last 4 days, have watched the episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, God.
So she can come with me.
The Revenge of the Sith?
No, we've been watching...
Oh, sorry, yes, of course, New Hope.
The original 3, but actually I think after this podcast is finished on it, we might be going now to the new ones and starting on episode 1. I'm scared. I don't necessarily want her to watch it in case she doesn't want to go and see the new one.
Those originals don't hold up, right? The first one.
No. Oh, 4, 5, and 6? They do hold up.
The re-edited versions. I don't know which versions you have. He's changed them like 20 times, but the original one, it's basically they have the flying things, as I call them. They're on string essentially throughout the whole film.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a fan, but I don't begrudge people. I find it interesting that there's these sports fans. It's kind of the jock culture, like laughing at people like dressing up to go and do it. I'm like, that first, that's their thing. Second of all, have you seen the Black Hole in Oakland? You dress up in a jersey to go and watch games or to go to a tailgate. It's just that's their thing. So you have to laugh at it. They laugh at the fact that I get upset on Mondays if the Patriots lose. It affects my Monday. They laugh at that.
Exactly. And I think they are right to laugh. No, only joke. Ollie, that's it then, buddy. We're going into Wildcard weekend. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait to find out the divisional matchups, and I really looking forward to that Chiefs-Texans game. Maybe one of the only people who's really looking forward to it, but I am.
No, me too. I said at the start as well, I'm really looking forward to watch JJ Watt. But I'm going to have to watch it at some other time because I will be in the middle of nowhere. So for now, it's goodbye from Ollie Connolly.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Keep watching the skies. Reference.